Guys, I shot a whole entirely different introduction to this video. In fact, I shot my video and I uploaded it for my editor to start editing it. And then I discovered that Byredo has been purchased by L'Oreal. Freaking L'Oreal does it again. The last time I reported on a L'Oreal purchase was when Mugler and Azzaro got taken over. Now it's Byredo. Why? Why Byredo? Why would you allow this? I guess they needed the money. I thought they were owned by the Manzanita Group, who also owns Diptyque, but I guess they needed L'Oreal. Man, this is so weird. Why? Why is L'Oreal buying Byredo when they had no idea what the heck to do with Atelier Cologne? Atelier Cologne has been pulled out of North America and also been put away, kind of. Is that what happened? A lot of people were telling me they've also been taken away from their own countries, and I had read that it was only going to be distributed in Europe, but I'm not 100% sure what's going on with Atelier Cologne. But now we have Byredo. Does L'Oreal really know how to deal with these niche houses when they're so familiar with designers? I guess they really want to get into the world of niche. But this is really, really disappointing. And this is going to be a totally different type of a video now because of this all of a sudden news that I just discovered with the purchase of Byredo by L'Oreal. What do you guys think about this? Is this exciting news or is it disappointing news? Because what happens with L'Oreal is at the end, brands get taken over and they kind of destroy the fragrances. That's pretty much what we know about L'Oreal doing with brands. I mean, it's all about money, and they take these fragrances and they make these fragrances and launch them, and if they don't do anything for them, they discontinue them and create other fragrances. But the problem also is they water them down, make very, very diluted fragrances of past really, really great fragrances. I don't know what they're going to do with Byredo, but let's see what they do. But this is shocking. It's a shocking, shocking news. And I thought that, it's just weird. I don't know what to say about this, because I was just over at Byredo just yesterday, as I said in the video you're going to hear in a little bit. And I didn't hear from the associates there. And I shot my video for De Los Santos and Vanille Antique. And then, as I was saying, I was uploading it, and now I've discovered it's been purchased. So I don't know what to say about it. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this to come. It just came from left field. It's like, whoa, where did that come from, kind of a thing. But yeah, it's a weird news because, as I was saying, it was part of the Manzanita Group, who also does Diptyque. They also own Malin and Getz and a few other brands. And of course, Byredo has a store here. And L'Oreal, once they take it over, I mean, what's going to happen? I don't know. But either way, it's a weird kind of an introduction. As I said, the video was already shot. I will not be mentioning the L'Oreal takeover of Byredo further into this video, because it's mostly about Vanille Antique and De Los Santos. But find out about these two fragrances coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, you've been asking me to review De Los Santos. This is going to happen today in this video, but I was waiting to fully test out this latest Vanille Antique as well, because I'm a vanilla lover and I love my vanillas, and I can never have enough vanilla, because I think it's one of the best notes in perfumes, because it not only reminds me of food, because I'm obsessed with good food and yummy desserts and things like that, but I think it's a great note to wear. And this is not necessarily breaking any new ground, but I think it's done really, really well. And in this collection, the Night Veils collection, I think this is one of the best. Not the best, because I'm going to tell you why it's not the best, but I think it's definitely one of the best. But both of them are pretty solid. I much prefer the Vanille Antique over the De Los Santos, and I'll let you know why I prefer that one over the De Los Santos. I mean, it's probably obvious, you know I love vanilla, but there's another reason why. Before I get to the fragrances though, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So I do want to let you know I have a link to ZGO Perfumery where I buy a lot of my Byredo fragrances, but I did not buy Vanille Antique from there because it didn't have it. But I did buy the other latest fragrance, De Los Santos, from ZGO Perfumery. Normally there is a discount code with some of their brands. Unfortunately, it's not applied to Byredo. But if you guys are in town, please go visit to discover all of the Byredo fragrances they have there, and they also have other brands as well. And typically there's a discount code, as I said. I'll leave it in the info box, but as I said, it doesn't apply to Byredo fragrances. So what is the deal with De Los Santos? So De Los Santos, I originally thought was featuring Palo Santo note. It does not feature Palo Santo note in this particular fragrance. There is a fragrance here that does feature this note, but in this one it doesn't. This is mostly about sage, orris root, musk, mirabelle, ambroxan, olibanum, cistus, incanus. So it does have a ambery dry down in the base, and there's a resinous touch about it as well. But it's very green and aromatic and also powdery woody. There's definitely a softness about this particular fragrance, and also a reminder of autumn. There's something very, very autumn-like about De Los Santos, which I quite like. And also the sage note in here is definitely very aromatic and herbal, and a light reminder of mint is in there. There's a little mintiness in this particular fragrance. Maybe it's the combination of the notes that's creating it like that to me, because sage is definitely an aromatic herb. It doesn't smell like mint to me in general, but here it kind of does. And with this particular fragrance, when I'm wearing it, as I said, it's reminding me of autumn. In Northern California is a perfect example of autumn, dry, kind of warm, and dried up shrubs and things like that. And there's all kinds of herbs and aromatics kind of growing. So you have this kind of like dried wood shrubs kind of a smell, but there's also this major pungent aromatic herbal qualities of some kind of herbs growing within those shrubs. And that's kind of what I picture or envision when I'm wearing this particular fragrance. So you're almost walking through it. There's all this dryness, but inside this dryness, there's like some kind of an herb which is very, very strong, essence, and it's baked under the sun, and the aroma is like all in the air. And that's kind of the experience I get with this one. It's just acts like all these kind of autumn shrubs and woods kind of dried up with some growth of aromatics, which is the sage note in here. But I did mention I'm getting more like a mintiness, but a very light mintiness, and I think it's just some of the notes put in together. It's creating this kind of a quality. Now there's this Mirabelle note in here. It's Mirabelle Plum, and I've noticed it come up in another fragrance recently. Juliet Has a Gun's Magnolia Bliss, and in that fragrance, that Mirabelle Plum is really, really in your face. Here it's very subdued. It's hardly fruity to me. And I think there is a little bit of that fruitiness, and it's perhaps this fruitiness with the sage. It's creating a little bit of a mintiness in this particular fragrance. But it's very soft. It's soft, spicy, and kind of warm, but woody, dusty, and powdery as well. So this one kind of goes down pretty fast, unfortunately for me. As you can see, I've worn quite a bit of it. This is kind of one of the lighter Byredo fragrances, but as a smell, I think it's definitely a great fragrance. It smells great. I think it could be an everyday kind of a wear type of a fragrance. And Byredo fragrances generally are kind of linear as in performance, not necessarily the smell. I'm not talking about the smell here, but linear as in performance, meaning they all kind of perform similarly, but throughout the collection there are those that are a little more beastly. I think it's a solid release. I just wish it was a little more oomphy and had a little more depth to it, but as an everyday kind of a wear, I think this is going to satisfy a lot of people. The only thing I think it might not resonate with people is the fact that it does have that mintiness, and sometimes minty fragrances can smell a little you know, like toothpastey or something like that. Here, it's almost borderline kind of going there, and that's the kind of mintiness it is. So there's a little bit of that kind of turn-off factor. But other than that, I think it's a solid release from Byredo de los Santos. Where does it land in the list? I'll let you know as soon as I review Vanille Antique for you guys. So Vanille Antique, on the other hand, it's absolutely delicious. Probably one of my favorite Byredos ever. This is from the Night Veils collection, and I think this is the 5th release. Actually, I was just at the Byredo boutique yesterday. I went with a friend who lives really close to the store there, and we were going through some of the Byredo Night Veils collection fragrances, and she fell in love with something about the Queen. Rain, I think. I forgot the name of the fragrance now. But she loved the tobacco, Mandarin tobacco. She doesn't like vanilla, so she didn't smell this one. But then she also enjoyed the lily one. So this particular fragrance, it's all about vanilla, and it's also very boozy. And in this particular fragrance, I also picture or envision a lot of woods. It's almost like it's all this vanilla syrup amber booziness as well, because there's booziness here, and it's sprinkled with wood shavings. I've experienced, or I've mentioned it, I should say, I've mentioned shavings of chocolate on top of fragrances, like when you wear them sometimes, like a cacao note. Here with this one, I'm not getting cacao or chocolate. I'm getting shavings of woods sprinkled on top of the syrupiness of the vanilla. But this fragrance features amber, white woods, vanilla, plum, labdanum, and musk, and there's no mention of booze, any kind of booze or boozy note like rum or cognac or whiskey, but I think it's the plum with the other notes in here creates like a booziness in this particular fragrance. It's so delicious, really delicious fragrance, and I think, like I said, it's definitely one of my favorite fragrances from Byredo now. I absolutely love the way it smells. Now here's a minor disappointing thing about this particular fragrance. I think Mandarin tobacco is really intense, and a few of the other fragrances in the collection are also really intense. This one doesn't seem as intense, as in it doesn't have that kind of big projection, like beefy intensity. It does have great lingering power. I think it's pretty intense in that kind of a characteristic of this particular fragrance. But if you want this really overly intense beast mode vanilla, this is definitely not it. But if you want a delicious vanilla, I think this will definitely satisfy, because I really love its syrupiness. It's sticky, sweet, syrupy vanilla. And of course, you've got that booziness, the fruitiness, and then that sprinkling of woods running throughout the whole fragrance. So not chocolate, but woods. I don't know if you can envision something like that, but that's what I get with Vanille Antique. And it's really great, as I said. So this is Vanille Antique and also De Los Santos, two of the latest fragrances from Byredo. Now I'll let you know how I rank the whole entire collection. And there's actually a total of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that have been launched since 2020. Now I did a ranked video recently, and this is just what we have launched since 2020. It's not the whole entire collection that I have here. And then of course I'm going to let you know about that one discontinued fragrance as well. So at number 6, I'm going to the fragrance Open Sky. Open Sky is a fragrance that was launched last year, and according to Byredo, it's a limited edition fragrance. This fragrance, Open Sky, is all about cannabis with pomelo. So if you like the idea of juicy grapefruit with cannabis, kind of a green, aromatic, herbal, but also kind of camphoric, bitter take on a herb type note, then I think this is going to satisfy. Do want to warn you though, when I'm wearing this particular fragrance, the cannabis definitely intensifies, and you have that kind of very fresh smelling green pungent cannabis smell. This doesn't smell like weed as after it's smoked. It's before, and it's very herbal. It's very green, and as I said, camphoric and kind of very pungent, and it contrasts with the juiciness of the pomelo. So along with cannabis and pomelo, there's vetiver, there's Palo Santo, and black pepper. This is the one that actually does feature Palo Santo, and it's a unique kind of a fragrance. It smells really great, but you gotta love this kind of bitter green cannabis note that's very prominent in this particular fragrance. And I think with this one, the vetiver also intensifies the cannabis note, so they kind of like complement one another and taking on characteristics of one another, because cannabis can come off a little vetiver-like, and vetiver can come off a little like a cannabis, so I think they do complement. This grassiness experience is definitely prominent here. So that's Open Sky. This is a limited edition fragrance from Byredo. Have you guys smelled it? I'm putting that at number 6. The next fragrance is called Young Rose. Young Rose came out last year as well. And Young Rose is a very fresh rose experience, and also a little... It's almost got like a DNA of pulp for some reason. I don't know what it is about this particular fragrance, but there is that kind of like reminder of pulp. I don't know if you're a fan of pulp from Byredo. I have a friend who loves this stuff. And for me, sometimes when this person wears it, there is that kind of rotting vegetable or fruits kind of a smell on them. And I wonder, does it really smell pleasant to you, man? So, but Young Rose is Damask Rose, Musk, Sichuan Pepper, Ambroxan, Iris, and Ambrette. It's definitely kind of musky. The Ambrette note has lots of muskiness, and I get fruits in here as well. It's almost like a fruity rose, and I'm assuming they've amplified the Ambrette note, which has the characteristics of fruits and a little booziness with this note as well. I don't get the booziness, but I do get the fruitiness, and I think that's why it also reminds me of pulp. There's definitely something pulpy happening in this particular fragrance. I think it's a very fresh wear, and it's definitely very, very rosy, and of course musky as well. So Young Rose at number 5. Let me know if you're familiar with Young Rose. I'm putting De Los Santos at number 4. De Los Santos, I already explained to you, it's the sage, it's the Orris root, the musk, Mirabelle, Ambroxan, Olibanum, Cistus, Incanus. It's definitely woody, and of course, as I said, it's definitely got a very autumn-like experience with that sage note. You imagine walking through the dried up park or trees and things like that, and you've come across this like growth of like green herbs, and you could smell that against the dried up shrubbery as well. That's what Byredo De Los Santos reminds me of. It totally reminds me of autumn. Dried up shrubs is basically what I was trying to say. So at number 3, we're going to MUMBAI Noise. This came out last year as well. MUMBAI Noise is kind of have similarities to Black Afghano or fragrances like that. They are definitely different, but you'll be reminded of one another. Some people say it's like a copy. Some people say it has, you know, it's not similar, but it'll remind you. To me, it does remind me. I don't say it's identical. They're not dupes, but they're kind of in that same ballpark of fragrances. Agarwood, Davana, Sandalwood, Coffee, Labdanum, Tonka bean are the notes here. It definitely has a very oody experience. Not like the, you know, Middle Eastern kind of oud. This is more of a Western kind of oud, but it does have the sandalwood. There's that coffee, and then of course the ambery touches in the base. And then with the Davana note thrown in here, it does kind of create a little bit of you know, boozy kind of green licoricey experience, which is a nice contrast against the oudiness of the agarwood and the coffee. So Black Afghano had the hashish or cannabis note. Yeah, it reminds me of that, for sure. So it does have the characteristics of Black Afghano, but when I'm wearing it, it does take on a different direction. But I quite like this particular fragrance, MUMBAI Noise at number 3. I think it smells really, really great. This one might not shock people, but maybe not understand you. Maybe might not have you guys not understand why I'm liking this particular fragrance. This is Mixed Emotions. I really like it. It was off-putting at first, but I got so used to it, I'm obsessed with the way it smells. It's a very interesting smell when you first smell it, but to me it's become a tea fragrance, and I really, really like this particular tea fragrance. It's black currant, mate, tea, birch, papyrus, violet leaf. So when it's first sprayed, there's that very, very pungent kind of a light animalic smell there. I don't know where that comes from. That goes away, and then it becomes a very, very cozy green tea experience with woods and of course ozonic touches. The violet leaf is really, really prominent here, and the violet leaf in here reminds me of the Byredo fragrance Unnamed, which is discontinued. So I feel like it's used quite a bit in Byredo fragrances. It adds a kind of a watery ozonic experience, so it's almost like you're wearing a wet fragrance, even though it's liquid that you're spraying on, but when you're wearing it you experience wetness because it's kind of watery. So that's what the violet leaf does with this one. So it's fruity, it's cozy, it's tea, it's a little smoky, it's a little pungent and green. It's a really, really great fragrance. Mixed Emotions at number 2, and you guessed it, my number 1, of course, it's got to be Vanille Antique. It's really, really delicious. As I was saying, it's very, very syrupy, sticky, sweet. And I should clarify also, when I say sweet, it's sweet because it's a sweet fragrance, but this is not uber sweet. Like, it's not tooth-rottingly sweet, but definitely sweet, sticky sweet, ambery, kind of a vanilla fragrance. It's got the booziness, it's got the fruitiness, and then you've got that dusting of woods on top of it, like it's dusting of cacao or something like that. Absolutely delicious, and that's why it's at number 1. This is from the Night Veils collection, and that's about it. That's the list of fragrances from the 2020 to now. I believe that's all they have launched since 2020. I could be missing something, but this is what I recall researching online and discovering that this is what they launched. And other than that, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on De Los Santos and Vanille Antique, and what about the rest of the fragrances that were launched from 2020 to now. If you're a fan of these fragrances, let me know, and if you are a fan of Byredo, also let me know. If you're not a fan of Byredo, please do write that down as well, because I know there are a lot of folks that don't like Byredo. It's almost like a very polarizing brand. There's major fans for this house. I mean, they're such popular that they have a standalone store here in San Francisco. Physical store, big store too. And then there's the folks that just don't get Byredo. I guess some people just don't click with the brand. It's kind of minimalistic. It's kind of not uber like intense fragrances, but it definitely clicks with the hipsters or hipster types. So let me know what your thoughts are on the brand. Put a comment down so I can find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So if you watch this video very closely, you notice that I put Young Rose at number 5. It's a new fragrance from this house. It came out later last year, and I first discovered it when they had just put it out at the Byredo boutique when I went there last year. But I also found out recently that Rose Noir has gotten the axe. It's discontinued. So maybe perhaps they launched a brand new one. This one's discontinued. I don't know why. But the store in San Francisco did tell me this is discontinued. They have bottles there, but they're going to sell out and not going to restock. I also double checked with them on their website, and they still have stock on the website as well. And of course, if it sells out, they're no longer going to stock it. This particular rose to me does have a very chypre-like quality, so it does have that kind of a presence here. It's damask rose, raspberry, oak moss, cistus labdanum, jasmine, patchouli, grapefruit, red berries. So it definitely has a fruitiness. It has this kind of juicy earthiness as well. I shouldn't say juicy earthy. They're two separate things. There's definitely a juiciness from the fruits and earthiness from the patchouli, and I think it's the patchouli with the rose and the labdanum that kind of reminds me of a type of chypre style fragrance. Maybe this one's not as popular. Maybe it's because one of the ingredients got recently banned. I don't know. But I do quite like this one. I recently had bought a large bottle after a small bottle of mine of this, a 50 ml, I ran through. But glad to have it. But now that it's gone, it's gone. Of course, as I said, there's still stock out there. But if you're a fan of Rose Noir, definitely get yourself a backup, because I've been told it's discontinued. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in for the bonus fragrance. This is not part of the releases from 2020 and on, I should also say. This came out quite earlier, but I just wanted to point out that this one is discontinued from Byredo. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good one. Bye-bye.